Good morning, and welcome to another Writer's Morning Commute with Ashton Gaskill. Having finished the overall view of how I write my stories, I thought I would go into more detail in this next series in how I outline specifically. I have a process that I've put together. It's kind of just coupled together from a bunch of different outlining strategies from other people. I figured out what worked best for me, what didn't work for me, and took what I liked and got rid of what I didn't like and put it all together into this kind of massive guide, I suppose, that I call the 9 points and 8/8 method. This first video, I'm just going to kind of go over what it is, what its sources are, and how I use it, and then I'll kind of go into those various points and eights later. As far as what it is very rooted in a 3-act structure or the hero's journey. It's a little bit more universally applicable, a little bit more figurative than a lot of hero's journey, strict hero's journeys are. You still have the overall shape of it, but there's a little bit more wiggle room, I think, than your traditional, 15-point, 16. Like, the hero's journey has a lot of details in it, not all of which will work for every story. That definitely is a analysis of stories rather than a story writing tool. 3-act structure, on the other hand, is a little bit more flexible. It is also a story analysis tool rather than a story writing tool, but I feel like it works better for writing stories just because it is a bit more flexible. So if you notice, the 8/8 does divide nicely into 4 sections. So it is kind of like a 3-act structure if you consider the second act to have 2 halves. A lot of 3-act structure discussion I've seen has Act 1, the first half of Act 2, the second half of Act 2, and then Act 3. I broke that up into kind of 4 acts. Instead of having 2A and 2B, it's just kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I broke those up into 8s. So the first 2 8s are your Act 1, eights 3, 4, 5, 6 are your Act 2, and then 7 and 8 are your Act 3. So for people familiar with 3-act structure, you're going to see a lot of similarities in there. But because of how the points work, which the points will also be familiar to you, I felt like dividing them up more helped me focus my stories a bit better. And the points are your characteristic moment, which is kind of your opening image, the inciting incident, the point of no return, your first pinch point, your midpoint, your second pinch point, your low point, your climax, and then your last image or your resolution. So that kind of gives you a pretty standard story curve or story shape. And the way I use this is all of those points and 8s have their own questions that I've, like I said, pretty much just stolen and repurposed for my own use. And And I go through and I answer all those questions. I don't worry about an outline at this point. I just answer all those questions as far as what could happen, what themes, how can you incorporate themes into these moments, that kind of stuff, which I'll get into in future videos. And I write out the answers. I actually go not in chronological order, but in a specific order I'll get into later. And then I rearrange them so they're in chronological order for each storyline of the book. So it's not just the book overall, it's your subplots should get their own, because they're their own story. The main plot should have its own, because it's its own story. If your main character has, two different things they're juggling, they'll have two different, you'll do this process for both of them. If side characters have their own story going on, each of those is its own story, and each of those should get its own, focus. And once I have those lists, all of the stuff that happens, I put it all in the roughly chronological order, and then I use that to build my actual outline from. I'll just say, okay, this stuff kind of works as a scene, and I can fit in this piece from that subplot and that piece from that subplot, and I can build that scene, and then I'll go for the next one. Alright, so if that happens, then, therefore this, or but that, and then you can go to the next scene. So hopefully that made sense. I'll get into more details, like I said, as the series continues. Thank you for riding with me. I hope you have a great day.